This What's Working with Cam Marston podcast is brought to you courtesy of First Horizon Bank.
Everyone has aspirations, and often we see them as experiences to be lived sometime down the road. But we say, why wait? Welcome to Bucket Listening, brought to you by First Horizon Bank, where we talk to people who have found a way every day to live their bucket life right now. Hi, I'm Tabitha Scott, a human dynamics expert and the host of this podcast. I hope you'll join me as I sit down with people from all walks of life to learn how their passions, insights, and persistence have helped them turn their bucket list into a beautiful life. This is Bucket Listening, presented by First Horizon.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. I'm so happy you're along with us for this show. It's going to be another good one. However, I don't think I've ever begun a show now that I've said this is going to be a bad one, but this one's going to be a good one. It comes from some questions that I've asked guests, some conversations I've had with my clients, and questions they've had that they can't figure out, and it's led to the invitation to Pete and Cheryl Blohme, brother and sister pair that run the Panini Pete enterprise. If you're in the South Alabama area, you've likely heard of Panini Pete or his handful of restaurants. We'll get into those after the break. But this invitation to Pete and Cheryl came as a result of a conversation with Josh Duplantis, who was a guest on the show several weeks ago. Josh was telling me a little bit about the employment plans, the progressive employment plans that he has worked with organizations on that lead to more successful recruiting and retention of people. And I said after the mics were off, hey, Josh, who around here does it well? Who can we interview? You've talked from an academic point of view, very interesting stuff, but who is out there for me to talk to? And he immediately said, you need to call Panini Pete and their team. So after a number of calls, and the way this often goes, we're finally able to get these two busy people into the studio. And when we come back from break, they'll be in, we'll begin talking about it. Now, the nature of today's interview is that I interviewed Pete and Cheryl prior to recording this that I'm speaking right now, so that I can tell you upcoming, you're going to get a sense of how this works from them. And most importantly, I think, a sense of the buy-in that it takes for employees to go through this. And I've said this before, and you've heard this before on this show. It takes leadership from the top to embody the culture, and it takes a long time for that leadership to embody the culture and for the people to see the culture for it to get embedded in them. And that's one of the focuses of this show. What's Working? If you're not a fan already, if you're new to the show, we try to find the workplace, the workforce, and the marketplace trends that are shaping the workplace, the workforce, and the marketplace around us, finding the guests that can talk about the trends in such a way that you and I can hear them and figure out what this means for us, that we can take some of these ideas and apply them to our own world in some way or another. And when we're talking about workplace culture, that's the focus of the show, workplace, workforce, business stuff. But if you're a coach, this applies to your team too. Without a doubt, it applies to your team too. I say that as my family is entering another season of athletics. It's a very exciting time for the family as I've got a son playing high school football, a daughter playing high school volleyball, and those teams typically reflect the coach. And it's interesting. It's really, really fascinating about how it takes a period of time and that team will reflect the coach. Our focus, of course, being workplace stuff. It reflects Panini Pete and Cheryl Blohme and what they do. So when we come back from that break, we'll have Pete and Cheryl. If by chance you are listening to the podcast version of this show, and you can find that at whatsworkingcam.com, you'll hear a new advertiser. I want to thank Seth Cherniak and Jeffrey Matthews Advisors. They've come on board, and I appreciate their support. Once they were clear about who my listener is, they thought, you know what? Seth said this might be fruitful for my company, and he's doing something different. He's trying to find talent, and Seth, I will do everything I can to help you. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us. What's Working continues to grow. I've announced the new show in Auburn. We're now just a couple of weeks in Auburn, and a lot of more coming. Anyway, when we come back from break, Pete and Cheryl Blohme will be in the studio with me. They'll be talking about what it is that they do in the progressive employment model that takes a historically high turnover industry like food service and hospitality and deals with it quite well by making careers for these people. We'll be right back after break. I'm Cam Marston. You're listening to What's Working. Stick around for a good one.
This is Seth Cherniak, Vice President of Branch Development for the Jeffrey Matthews Financial Group. If you're an experienced financial advisor wanting the freedom of independence but aren't sure making that jump is right for you, we should talk. Jeffrey Matthews has developed a successful program for advisors who don't want to be 1099 contractors and don't want to pay for their own overhead. We're looking for advisors who want the freedom to run their business the way they see fit, with the support that comes with a W-2 firm. If you're interested in joining one of our branches, or if you want to open your own branch as a full-time employee, let's chat. Our compensation plan is one of the most competitive among all W-2 firms, big or small. Reach out to us today at jeffreymatthews.com, connect with me, Seth Cherniak, on LinkedIn, or click the link in the podcast.
Jeffrey Matthews Financial Group. Member FINRA, SIPC. We're back. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm in the studio today in downtown Mobile with Pete and Cheryl Blohme, brother and sister, part of the leadership team running Panini Pete's hospitality group. ChefPaniniPete.com is where you'll find the information. It was in a conversation with the previous interview, Josh Duplantis, when I asked him about local organizations that were pushing and promoting a culture as well as a progressive work environment, which has become, in my research, a remarkable retention tool. I said, Josh, who's doing it well? He said, go find Panini Pete. And I began the reach out and finally landed the two of them in the studio today. Panini Pete, Cheryl Blohme, welcome to What's Working. Thank you both so much for your time.
Hey, Cam, thanks for having us. Great to be here.
Thank you. Good to be here.
There is in fact, I leave this afternoon for Gulf Shores, where I'll be giving a presentation tomorrow morning to a group of people who are wondering about recruiting and retention trends. They're struggling with turnover. You all are the leadership of a historically high turnover business, the hospitality, the restaurant business, but you have solved the problem, it sounds like, the way the word has come to me. Tell me a little bit about your employment philosophy and how you solved the problem, and then we're going to get into the weeds on how you're doing it.
Solved is a very strong word and probably misleading, but, because we do still have a lot of seasonal workers. You do have a lot of people that come and go, maybe while they're in college, where you just have them for a few years or something. But we've really done a good job of minimizing it and realizing it's part of our industry. So how do we embrace it and how do we minimize it? It's never going to go away because not everybody in there is a career person. You know, the hostesses, the bussers, the dishwashers, the cooks, the servers, everybody's, we have a lot of youth. We got people in transition. Some of it's high skilled, some of it's low skilled. So it's just really understanding what you're doing and then understanding this time of what we're dealing with now with the labor force and not what do I look for in a job? What do they look for in a job? What do they look for in a career? Who's looking for advancement? So, Cheryl, perfect example. She's my sister, as you mentioned, and, helped me open the OG Panini Pete's as a server back in the day and has worked her way up through the ranks to be a general manager. And then entering this new time, we promoted her. She used to be a headhunter out in California years ago, and we brought her in as our, recruiter now. And that's made a big change in what we do. So it was targeting the need for that job.
And it sounds like you've accepted, and this is something I think many employers struggle with, you've accepted the fact that there is not a quote-unquote traditional work path anymore. You come to work and you stay in that job. You've said, this is a high turnover job. We're going to do our best to minimize it, but we can't fix it. Is that correct?
Absolutely. It's like, one of the analogies I give all the time, it's like the restaurant business is my dog, and I love my dog, and dogs are great and they love you back unconditionally. But occasionally it's going to chew your sneakers. It's going to crap on the rug. It's going to do things you don't like. But if you're a good dog owner and you practice certain things and you make policies or procedures or an environment, you can manage some of that, where if you walk them when you're supposed to, if you don't leave your sneakers out. Now, it's still a dog.
Right.
It's still going to bark in the middle of the night. It's still going to happen, but it'll happen a whole lot less. And you shouldn't freak out about a dog being a dog. So in our industry, people come and go. We don't freak out about it. It's just part of what we have to deal with. So we look at it proactively and go, how do we stay ahead of this?
So how have you stayed ahead of it? Let's begin there. How have you stayed ahead of it?
Culture is important. We talked about that. Our industry also has some dark sides. It's been an industry of just, behavior issues and hostile environments and, sex, drugs, and rock and roll kind of thing in the past. And we run our business as a business. It's a fun business, but, we don't tolerate a lot of, bad behavior or things like that, or bad activities, or people coming to work in less than a bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and ready to go. So the culture is first and foremost. You want to have a place people want to work. But as this changed and evolved the culture now, when we brought in Cheryl to do recruiting, we target. We're out there all the time. You mentioned Josh Duplantis, and we're at these different meetings, we're at these different groups. We're putting in the work. We're getting out there, whether it's high schools, whether it's, adults with developmental disabilities, veterans, any kind of groups that we can get after and we can partner with to help potentially be a better employer and attract more people into our world.
Cheryl, you're hitting the streets trying to attract people. You're the head of recruiting. I assume you've gone through some messages that work well and some messages that work poorly about who you are, and you've found some sort of recipe that seems to be working. What is that recipe today?
I have to say it's always changing. You have to really be aware of, pay attention to the response on your job post. It's all about social media. We're now looking into TikTok and doing this and doing videos. So you have to make it interesting and fun, but also you have to back it up. So you can hire someone and promise them, excellent pay, fun, dynamic environment, beautiful bay, growth. You have to be able to offer that. And we do. They come in and, that's what I think makes a difference. And you're going to, I think, attract a better employee.
So one of the progressive employment models that Josh shared with me is that you can get a employee who may accept a lower salary or a wage versus another job that's available to them. They will accept that lower wage if you promise growth, training, development, if you build a vision for their future. Whereas the competition you may have down the street may pay them more, but they're selling them not exactly a dead-end job, but no growth and development. Is that something you all have embraced?
Money still is,
You can't ignore that.
Yeah,
right.
They're always going to go down the block and make more money, but then they always come back, and that's just recently happened. They see what our culture is about. They see how the employees are, the standards. The owners are always engaged in employee development, and they want to have that. They'd rather be in a progressive, dynamic culture, cultivating environment than to just be a number at another restaurant. And again, in the end, they do want to make more money, but as soon as they get to know us and know what we're about and see the results, they always want to come back and stay with us.
And are you doing something to show them in advance that, hey, this is who we are? How are they seeing? How are they verifying that you are who you say you are? Because I think there's a jaded amount of the workplace there that says they say this, but they do this. What is the physical demonstration that you mean what you say?
Well, we have employees that have been with us for years, and there's testimonials. So, they're willing to be somewhat of a trainer within the restaurant and talk to them about their experience and we share videos of testimonials. We, our reputation is huge, just as you know. Anybody who knows about us, we have an amazing reputation that's solid in the industry, and it's legitimate what we do. So I think that your reputation is very, very important, and you hear from current employees that have been with us a long time that are happy to tell them all about it.
Real quick, do you have a sense of what the average tenure in your workplace is?
I mean, it varies so much in the concepts. And again, we have literally seasonal help. When you blend it all, there's literally college kids that come down and they work the summer and they go back, and we may increase our staff by 30, 40% and then go back to the core. So, I'd be guessing if I was giving you percentages. And for us, it's not about the career. In our industry, it's about, can you keep them for a few years?
Yeah. If
they're not on a career path, because not everybody is going, I want to do this for a living. Some people, it's a part-time, it's a side hustle. Some people, it's just something they're doing now until they get their career. We have a lot of people working with us that have degrees in different courses of study.
Before we go to break, folks, I wanted to remind you about Bucket Listening. This is the new podcast from First Horizon Bank. The question is, why wait until you retire to achieve your bucket list, to search for your bucket list? Why not start right now? Bucket Listening is a podcast provided by First Horizon Bank, interviewing leaders from across the country, all of which are First Horizon customers, who have said, I'm not going to wait, I'm going to start now. And First Horizon helps them facilitate their transition into their bucket list before they retire. It's a wonderful series of podcasts, very inspiring and very motivational, hosted by Tabitha Scott. I reached out to her, asked her to explain it to me, and she was very excited about what it is. So check out Bucket Listening on your favorite podcast app. When we come back from break, I'll be back with Pete and Cheryl Blohme, brother and sister running Panini Pete's empire. Customer service never goes out of style. In fact, I think it's safe to say that customer service is more valuable and more important now more than ever. Hi, this is Cam Marston. One thing that my over 200 episodes of What's Working has taught me is how important customer service is to building and maintaining a thriving business. It's the growing need for customer service that's led me to partner with one of the state's leading customer service trainers to create our program called Delivering 5-Star Customer Service. Your team will get one 90-minute training session per month for 6 consecutive months. Each session builds on the skills learned the previous month, allowing your customer-facing teams to practice before moving on to the next lesson. And the 6 lessons address everything from appearance to electronic communications to conflict resolution to maintaining a service mindset. Our program travels and is delivered in person at your workplace, nothing virtual. You simply can't practice the level of the skills this course teaches virtually. For more information, email me, cam@cammarston.com, and let's schedule a time to talk. Remember, you have less to fear from outside competition than you do from discourtesy and bad service from inside your own company. Again, email me, cam@cammarston.com, and let's talk about your business. We're back. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston in the studio, sitting across from Pete and Cheryl Blohme, brother and sister running the Panini Pete Enterprise here in Mobile, actually based in, is it Fairhope or Daphne?
Our office is actually in Mobile.
Is in Mobile. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that. All right, in Mobile. Glad to hear that. Appreciate you leaving some taxes on this side of the bay.
Absolutely.
One of the things that I want to get into in this segment, because again, I told you about the listener when we began this prior to the mics coming on. My listener is an influencer. He or she has the ability to make a decision and make some changes in their workplace if they hear an idea that strikes them as a good idea. Let's talk about any sort of physical documents you've created that you use to manage the careers of any of these people, whether they're seasonal, whether they're lifers, whatever it may be. Is there a tool that you use that is a fundamental help to what we're talking about here?
Let me talk real quick. So I brought in a business partner about 8 years ago, Nick DeMario, and we had worked together for years in the industry. And if you have that opportunity where you suddenly realize you really want to grow your business, and you look at your capabilities and what you're good at, and you have some other people you've worked with, and I knew Nick would be a great addition because he's a great developer of people. And when you're talking about growing your culture and forums and different things that do that, Nick's awesome for that. I mean, it's a whole separate podcast. He'd be great. And it's been a tough transition to be able to pull back slowly and give him more and more responsibility. I'm kind of like, you're the operations guy. And, we have succession plans. We talk with people about their personal, professional, and financial goals. We've done a better job of trying to get to know what they really want to accomplish and how do we help that. And their long-term goals may be leaving us and doing their own thing. And that's okay.
You bless that then. You bless that long-term goal if it's leaving us.
Absolutely, because you want to think that you're going to have this staff and everybody's doing a great job and you have these great crews and it's never going to change. But there are going to be people out there like yourself, that go, I want to have my own business. I want to have my own restaurant. I have these own ideas. And you don't want to squash that. If anything, you want to encourage them and help them so they can go be a success and say, man, I had a great run with PP Hospitality and help me be more successful in what I'm doing. Even if it's not in the restaurant business, could be in the hotel business, other branch of the hospitality, or it could be something completely different.
So Nick brought in some systems, some procedures, some documents.
Yeah, discipline, I think he brought in more than anything. And, Panini Pete's, when I was there all day, every day, ran the place from the Panini press and, making everything, you're touching everything. And so I got away from some of the systems and structure that I had used for bigger operations. And then all of a sudden I opened a second one. And then you go, whoa, wait a minute. Now I have to rise these people up. I need things to be consistent. There has to be a plan. There has to be a recipe. There has to be outlines, procedures, line checks, walkthroughs, things that help you maintain standards. We have a lot of people that not everybody, we're not everybody's cup of tea because we have high standards. We don't have a lot of rules. We don't have a lot of policies, but we have high standards that determine what we need to do.
Interesting. I like that. Not a lot of rules, not a lot of policies, but very high standards.
Mm-hmm. And I think when we bring someone in who's new, they are well aware of what we expect, our expectations, and what our mission is. I mean, our mission is to seize the opportunity to make our guest day through genuine hospitality, good food, delicious food, creative beverages. So that ties into every part of the restaurant. So we provide tools, physical tools, whether it's a walkthrough that they look at every day, opening and closing prep lists, recipe cards, and also, performance evaluations, open communication, so they know how they're doing.
So as the named guy, Pete, of Panini Pete's and PP Hospitality, how hard was it for you to let go and give it over to Nick? And what did Nick see when he got it?
There's a lot of, there's ego that gets involved. And Nick and I had worked together before for a long time. I hired him as an assistant manager. And as I grew with the company, when I left, he ended up staying with this company for over 20 years and he became their VP of operations. So I knew he had great exposure and great discipline. And we were also like brothers. We got along really good. Very difficult though. But, as you grow, for me, I'm a late bloomer. I didn't open my first business till I was 42 years old. So I feel like I already had a little better head, than at least I did when I was in my 20s. So even when I closed Panini Pete's in Mobile to rebrand that was a big decision because we had a successful business, but I saw the market evolving so much. And for a lot of people, like, well, you're going to close it. It's like Panini Pete's and that's your brand, that's your name, that's your moniker. That's a failure. And it's like, I'm a businessman too. So the businessman in me said it was great to bring him in. And then we just worked really hard together in the trenches. And over time, it's kind of evolved. Some of it was forced. My wife's a cancer survivor, and I went through a lot with her treatment, 4 or 5 years ago. And at that time, I was like, you got to take care of this, man. I'm not going away, but you're not going to see me for a while.
Right.
And I was taking care of business, and I got to see that it worked. And so sometimes a little bit of force lets you realize it's okay. Not to let go, but just to lighten your grip a little bit.
So what did Nick see when he got in the business? Did he see chaos? Did he see something that was ready to grow? Did he see a fuse that was lit? Or what did he see?
No, I mean, I don't
regret, despair.
I think that he really stays ahead of, he keeps with the pulse of every restaurant, and that means showing up every day in the morning, talking to the GM, talking to the staff, We have a very good controller, a financial person who's excellent with numbers and keeps us with the budget. And also, we just hired a training director. And he knows what you need to do in order to succeed. And that is hiring a training director, someone who can make sure that these policies and procedures are actually happening in each location. So I think that he loves this business, so much, and he loves the people part of it. And I think that it was a challenge for him, I'm sure.
You know what you sound like to me? You sound like a teeny Fortune 500 company with all your structure and your policies and procedures. You almost sound like a military unit with the division of labor.
You really, yeah.
That's huge. I do a lot of cooking for the troops. I've been blessed to start this group called the Mess Lords, and we go out and boost morale.
Yeah.
And I learned one of the biggest things I took away was young people with really good training and really good leadership can do amazing things. And we like to write young people off. And it's like I think about stuff I did when I was in high school that I forgot about, where I was running a restaurant, so to speak, of the shift, and go, when these people are trained well, and that's the key, and why, director of training, you could have a great manual, but if it's not being practiced, it's not being used, it's not being followed up on, there's not ongoing checks and balances, then it's going to be worthless.
It's discipline. Tell me about Corey. We've got 2.5 minutes.
So this is a great story.
We over and over again.
Yeah, we bought the Ed Seafood Shed brand in 2017. Ed and Barb were ready to retire. It was a 17-year-old brand. They had an amazing run. But to be blunt, it was in disarray. They had lost a lot of business, and the facility was rough, and the crew was pretty rough. And all of a sudden, one Saturday, they held a meeting. Here's the keys. We're the new bosses. And there was a lot of non-believers on the staff, I'll say. And Corey was one of those. She was a longtime server there, and like, who are these guys that are come in with standards and they want us to clean and we got to do this, and they're talking all this stuff. So she was somebody that was very resistant at first. And we just got in there in the trenches. I mean, Nick and myself were in there all day, every day, cleaning, fixing, putting in standards, where's the crab bisque recipe? And you got one guy that's pointing to his head going, I got it right here. There's nothing on paper. So over time, she got to see that we were real. And, but we were still having fun, but we were working hard and we had high standards. And over time, she became to be less of a resistance, and then kind of like, okay, I'll go with the flow, to more about 6 months into it was going, could I possibly have a career with you guys?
No kidding.
And then it was a succession plan, and she became a key employee and then assistant manager. And she's actually now the GM of our newest property, the Waterfront.
Yeah.
Doing a fabulous job.
So it was, and this is another thing I hear on this show over and over again, the culture comes from the top. You cannot
100%.
ask the lead food server of the shift to embody the culture if you embody something different. And it sounds like from that time spent in Ed's Seafood Shed cleaning, it was a mess. Mm-hmm. You proved it. Yeah. Yeah. All right, this is good stuff. Folks, what we're hearing again, discipline, standards, and most importantly in this segment is the culture emanates from the top. There's some German saying, I wish I knew it, the fish stinks from the head. If you turn it around, the culture emanates and is perpetuated from the top. You're listening to What's Working. We'll be right back.
This is Seth Cherniak, Vice President of Branch Development for the Jeffrey Matthews Financial Group. If you're an experienced financial advisor wanting the freedom of independence, but aren't sure making that jump is right for you, we should talk. Jeffrey Matthews has developed a successful program for advisors who don't want to be 1099 contractors and don't want to pay for their own overhead. We're looking for advisors who want the freedom to run their business the way they see fit, with the support that comes with a W-2 firm. If you're interested in joining one of our branches, or if you want to open your own branch as a full-time employee, let's chat. Our compensation plan is one of the most competitive among all W-2 firms, big or small. Reach out to us today at jeffreymatthews.com, connect with me, Seth Cherniak, on LinkedIn, or click the link in the podcast.
Jeffrey Matthews Financial Group, member FINRA, SIPC. Marston here. I'm in the studio with Panini Pete and Cheryl Blohme, brother and sister running the PP Hospitality Enterprise out of Mobile, Alabama. You don't have to be from Mobile to appreciate the content, though. They've created a non-traditional workforce out of a historically high turnover job, which is hospitality, and we're learning a little bit of how they did it. Segment 4, for the regular listeners, is when we go through the questions that we meet these people a little bit differently, and we ask a handful of questions that have somewhat become standard. We won't get through them all, but we're going to have fun with the ones that we get through. So we'll begin with you, Cheryl. Ladies first. What is your favorite business book, and tell me why you liked it so much?
Well, I actually, I don't really know if I have a favorite business book. I'm more interested in the, I guess you could say, spiritual mindset, and which in turn helps with business. But Grant Cardone is someone that we just, Nick and Pete are, just huge fans of his. So I've been listening to the 10X Mentor, or Sold or Be Sold, which is another book. And those are very, very, it's all about discipline. It's all about 10Xing your life. It's about everything you do, you have to put in the effort. So to me, that was a very, very positive business.
You mentioned spiritual. Is there a spiritual component to Grant Cardone's writing?
I mean, there's an element to that, but it's not anything that he really touches on. It's more about, you need to do this and get, you have to put forth the effort every single day, but you also have to have respect your inner core and be true to yourself. And, in turn, that just, I think that makes a huge difference.
Yeah. Pete?
Yeah, I mean, for me, there's a lot of great ones in there. The E-Myth was a great influence of getting me to look at business and your different roles. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I loved. Cardone, you mentioned the 10X rule. Expanding your thinking, your mindset is so important. And through the years, I hoped to open my own restaurant, and then when I got to do it, and then got to expand, and then it was like, okay, I'm going to grow a company, and then it's like, wow, hold on, we can maybe do this, we could do this, and you just start thinking a lot bigger. So I really like that book as well.
Yeah, that's all right. So one of the great things of this show for me is I get great recommendations on good content. I've written Grant Cardone down, something I'm going to check out. It's remarkable to me, and actually I did some research on this not long ago. How few people are reading books, how many are listening to the books, and that's become me as well.
My Audible is on all the time.
Mine too.
Yes.
Mine too.
Love it.
Yeah. All right. Number 2, what one trend in the marketplace excites you about your business? We'll start with you this time, Pete.
I mean, food in general, people are eating less at home and eating more out. So I do love that trend about it. It seems like the trend for food is going downward, though, to quicker, faster, less quality food. But the fact that people are eating out a lot more, I do like that.
Yeah. Cheryl?
I think, it's always changing. I mean, there's so much growth within this industry that is exciting to me. It's not just about the restaurant and, coming in and ordering from a server or so-called waitress. And it's just really, it's fascinating how fast it's growing and how so much more I would love to learn. Yeah. Not just at the food and beverage level.
We interviewed Fat Boys Pizza a couple months ago, I guess, out of Metairie, Louisiana. They're trying to expand, and the show was on how do you select a location. All right, you don't just throw a dart at a map. There's a science to it, I would presume, and hoped to hear that there was. But one of the things they said is they have no food servers, but their tips are above average, so that the people go and essentially serve themselves and tip for no service. It's weird. I don't quite understand it. They're looking to to get headway here in Alabama, and I'm eager to see how it works. And that's a trend in the industry I didn't expect to hear. All right, number 3 is one trend in the marketplace that worries you. We'll go back to you, Cheryl.
I think possibly the lack of going out to a restaurant and spending the money, even though, Peter mentioned people are going out. I think they are going out still, but I think there's also the element of getting things to go, or, there's curbside at grocery stores. And I think that could, maybe, make a difference in the success of having a true full-service restaurant.
I read that I think it's Albertsons is the nation's largest sushi sales.
Oh, yeah, I heard that yesterday.
Wow.
Yeah,
I know.
yesterday. I heard the same.
crazy.
I heard that. I was like, Publix for sure. They're like, no, Albertsons. I was
Yeah.
like, wow.
Yeah. Pete, worries you?
For me, it's technology you have to embrace it. We love it, but I hate what it's doing to food because things are getting sped up and there's less being done from scratch. Technically, it's changing. The workforce is embracing technology and looking for other ways to make a living. So it's not throwing a lot of young people aren't getting excited about our industry. They're not aware of the potential for growth. So that kind of is a bummer, although it's the reality, we're learning about technology all the time and how we need to incorporate it to stay successful.
Yeah. All right. I'm very curious about this number 4, Pete. You said you were a late bloomer. The biggest business mistake you've made?
I could narrow it down to a partnership I did in Destin, because it cost me a lot of money. So
Yeah.
I consider it my biggest mistake that way. I learned a lot through the process that has helped me get to the level I'm at. So it's one of those double-edged swords. But, if you're going to be in a partnership with anybody, you got to really understand your roles going in. And you got to really have, what is your goal and what's everybody going to do? Because partnerships are difficult. Nick and I are, I think, very unique in the fact that we get along so well and we work so well together. I don't see that a lot.
I would bet a quarter of the guests who have been asked that question have mentioned a partnership of some sort, rushed into it.
Right.
Yeah. Cheryl, biggest business mistake you've made?
Okay, so I guess I could say being the GM of Panini Pete's is no, not that.
Taking
in
that
itself.
job was the biggest
not that
mistake.
in itself. No, not that in itself, but just not I guess trusting someone to carry through what they need to get done, and also getting into the human element of it. It was very very intense for me. So I think I took it way too seriously than, I think it would have been easier for me if I lightened up a little bit.
The generation you enjoy working with the most? Now, Pete's had a lot of positive things to say about young people.
I think it's more of my generation.
Yeah.
I'm still learning a lot from, say, Nick and Pete and other business owners or individuals. And my level, I have working with younger generations frustrating for me. I'm not sure why. I just have no patience. But
Because they're all wrong.
I know they're all wrong.
Pete, generation.
Yeah, I think the younger generation is a huge challenge, but I embrace that because it you just keep trying to get through to them on the things that matter to you, even though sometimes they don't matter to them. But it's fun and it's challenging. And, I still think the food is in good hands. When we work with young culinarians and ProStart and some of these other people that are in the business, focused on a career in the business, that really excites me.
Yeah. I've had a lot of people on the show as well that say teaching. At some point in their career, earning was surpassed by teaching in what became very important to them. And it's a common theme. I'm learning so much. All right. So we've got just over a minute and we have 3 more questions. I'm going to ask you to answer with one word. Pete, your favorite vacation destination?
Probably Hawaii.
Cheryl?
I'd have to say the Keys, the Florida Keys.
Water and beaches for both of you. Pete, you've got a blog, you've got a book. Tell people how to find both.
ChefPaniniPete.com has links to everything. My book, Spatula Success, is awesome, all about digging deep, getting the most out of your opportunities. And the Raw Ingredients podcast is a great one to listen to for the industry.
Okay, it's an industry thing.
Predominantly, it's success, it's achievement. It's about what's your recipe for success, what are the raw ingredients. So I think it's a good crossover, but I typically am talking to chefs and restaurateurs.
Cheryl, if they want to find you, they can go through the website?
Yeah, absolutely. They can go to either careers@paninipetes.com, or we have a website with all the brands, pphospitalitygroup.com.
Excellent. Thank you both very much. Folks,
Thank you.
check them out. The links to everything they mentioned will be in the podcast show notes. You can find that at what'sworkingcam.com. This will bring segment 4 to a close. When we come back, segment 5, my takeaways from the episode and what you can expect upcoming. You're listening to What's Working. We'll be right back.
When making the largest investment choice in most families' financial portfolio, you need a realtor who truly understands the market and can negotiate favorable terms and conditions. I'm Angelo DiPaola, the Coastal Connection with eXp Realty, the preferred real estate advisor for buying or selling along the Gulf Coast. For full access to the MLS in Mobile, Baldwin County, Pensacola, Destin, or Panama City, just Google Angelo DiPaola, the Coastal Connection.
Thank you, Pete. Thanks, Cheryl. I appreciate it. We're back. You're listening to What's Working, and I'm Cam Marston. Hopefully you got some good content out of that. And if you're an employer struggling with employment issues, can't find enough people, turnover's too high, you might have heard something in there that I think you can apply. I sure hope you can. That's the goal for every show. It's worth noting that Pete and Cheryl showed up with his famous beignets in a brown box, and there were a bunch of them in there. And it's hard to dislike anybody that shows up with food, particularly his famous beignets. They were really good. I brought them home for my family, and they were really good at home for the family too. But I think we heard something that is quite insightful and hopefully something that you can utilize. The hard work that he mentioned, Pete and Cheryl mentioned, as they were getting that restaurant in shape after the fire. The work that they did became immediately visible to the team. The team who may have been skeptical about things thought, I see this and I see who's doing it. And there's no way to deny their commitment. They continue to come back day after day to do the work. And it's not just the work and the labor that I'm talking about here and the sweat of the brow and all that. It's the commitment and the behavior that supports the commitment. We've all heard this over and over. People don't care nearly as much as you say as what you do. It's what they see you do that matters. You and I can say all the right things over and over again. Nevertheless, it's what we do that matters the most. And Pete and Cheryl talked about their visible commitment to that team in front of that team and how it became a differentiator for that one restaurant. He's now building careers with people in a historically high turnover job, which is the hospitality, particularly the restaurant industry, and they've done quite well. Thank you, Pete. Thanks very much. I look forward to maintaining a friendship with you and Cheryl. Again, thanks for coming over to the show. And thanks for the beignets. That's always nice. Thanks. So What's Working continues to evolve. I know you're probably tired of hearing me talking about that right now, and much of it's not visible to you, the listener, but we've set up an FTP site to distribute the show to our stations across the state of Alabama. We've got a guy coming on that's going to begin selling, quote unquote, I'm using air quotes on this, selling the show in markets adjacent to Alabama as we begin to grow east, west, and north. Nowhere to grow south when you live in Mobile. You can find us on, as always, find the podcast at whatsworkingcam.com. Send me your feedback, your thoughts. If you feel like there's a guest out there that I need to know about that can tell a good story about the changes they've made in their business and some ideas that all of us could adopt, I'd like to know about him or her. And you can email me directly, Cam, C-A-M, at cammarston.com. Additionally, you can find me all over social media. I'm more active on some than others. Very active on LinkedIn. You can find me there, as well as Facebook. That's the old people social media, I'm told, and that's where I exist. All my children have accounts on Facebook, but it's largely to see what I'm posting about them. They're not active. They're just making sure I'm not lying about them, which I kind of do from time to time. Anyway, find us on social media. Find us at whatsworkingcam.com. Send us the name of your guest ideas, any sort of feedback you have. If you're listening on the podcast, please evaluate it on Apple Podcasts. Give us a rating. That stuff matters. It helps Apple know whether we're doing a good job. We'll be back next week. Have a good week, everybody. Thanks for listening. As you likely know, this show originates as a radio show broadcast across the state of Alabama, and it continues to grow in both radio listeners and market. After it's formatted for radio, we then turn it into this podcast. Please share it with those you think would find it interesting, and subscribe to the podcast on my YouTube page where you can leave messages and your thoughts and your comments, and I'll certainly get back in touch. Finally, if you're a fan of the show, please offer a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. You can find my book called What Works on Amazon.com. In it, I highlight the top 10 ideas from the first 200 episodes of the show. Mind you, they're not the top 10 best episodes, they're the top 10 best ideas. Many times the same ideas are brought up again and again by different guests, and we dig into those ideas in such a way that they'll be easily applicable for your business. Simply go to Amazon and enter my name, and you'll find What Works as well as my other books. Chapter titles include How to Find a Niche, Innovation, Building Teams, and so forth. To learn more about the workshops and seminars I offer, go to cammarston.com. There you can view clips of my work, view workshop titles, view my reviews, case studies, customer lists. It's all there. If you'd like a free copy of one of the chapters of my book, enter your email address at the bottom of the homepage at cammarston.com. And from that site, you can email me directly. I always love to hear from you. You'll also find me on social media. Find Cam Marston on all the social media platforms, and you may need to enter the numeral 1. There's one other Cam Marston out there, and that numeral 1 distinguishes me from him from time to time. So if you're unsure if it's me or not, enter that numeral 1 after my name, and it should do the trick. On a more personal and less professional side, I record weekly commentaries that air across Alabama on Alabama Public Radio twice each day on Fridays called Keeping It Real. They've won statewide and national awards. They're simple observations on the world as it goes on around me, and they're only a few minutes long. They're a passion. You can find them on the same podcast app you're using to listen into this. Finally, if you're interested in advertising on this podcast or the radio show, reach out. I've worked hard to cultivate a specific listener, and I can tell you all about them, and I have many different options for helping you reach them. Thanks again for listening. We'll have another episode available soon.